Elinor left the house without any wish of knowing them better. Not so the Miss Steeles, and to be better acquainted, Elinor soon found was their inevitable lot. Elinor had not seen them more than twice before the eldest of them wished her joy on her sister's having been so lucky as to make a conquest of a very smart beau since she came to Barton. "'Twill be a fine thing to have her married so young, to be sure," said she, "and I hope you may have as good luck yourself soon." Elinor could not suppose that Sir John would be more nice in proclaiming his suspicions of her regard for Edward than he had been with respect to Marianne. Indeed, it was rather his favourite joke of the two, as being somewhat newer and more conjectural. The Miss Steeles, as expected, raised a curiosity to know the name of the gentleman alluded to. But Sir John did not sport long with the curiosity which he delighted to raise, for he had at least as much pleasure in telling the name as Miss Steele had in hearing it. "His name is Ferrers," said he, in a very audible whisper, "but pray do not tell it, for it is a great secret." "Ferrers?" repeated Miss Steele. "What? Your sister-in-law's brother, Miss Dashwood? I know him very well." Elinor heard all this with attention and surprise. She wished very much to have the subject continued, but no farther notice was taken of Mr. Ferrers' name by Miss Steele when alluded to, or even openly mentioned, by Sir John. Lucy was naturally clever. Her remarks were often just and amusing, and as a companion for half an hour, Elinor frequently found her agreeable. But her powers had received no aid from education. Her want of information in most common particulars could not be concealed from Miss Dashwood. "You may think my question an odd one, I dare say," said Lucy to her one day as they were walking together from the park to the cottage. "But pray, are you personally acquainted with your sister-in-law's mother, Mrs. Ferrers?" Elinor did think the question a very odd one, and her countenance expressed it, as she answered that she had never seen Mrs. Ferrers. "Mrs. Ferrers is certainly nothing to me at present," continued Lucy, "but the time may come, how soon it will come must depend upon herself, when we may be very intimately connected." "Good heavens!" cried Elinor. "What do you mean? Are you acquainted with Mr. Robert Ferrers?" "No," replied Lucy, "not to Mr. Robert Ferrers. I never saw him in my life. But," fixing her eyes upon Elinor, "to his elder brother." What felt Elinor at the moment? She turned towards Lucy in silent amazement. "You may well be surprised," continued Lucy, "for it was always meant to be a great secret, and I am sure has been faithfully kept so by me to this hour." Elinor for a few moments remained silent, but at length forcing herself to speak, and to speak cautiously, she said with a calmness of manner, "May I ask if your engagement is of long standing?" "We have been engaged these 4 years." Elinor, though greatly shocked, still felt unable to believe it. "I beg your pardon, but surely there must be some mistake of person or name. We cannot mean the same Mr. Ferrers." "We can mean no other," cried Lucy, smiling. Fortunately, they had now reached the cottage, and the conversation could be continued no farther. After sitting with them a few minutes, the Miss Steeles returned to the park, and Elinor was then at liberty to think, and be wretched. Had Edward been intentionally deceiving her? Had he feigned a regard for her which he did not feel? Was his engagement to Lucy an engagement of the heart? As these considerations occurred to her in painful succession, she wept for him, more than for herself. Much as she had suffered from her first conversation with Lucy on the subject, she soon felt an earnest wish of renewing it. She wanted to hear many particulars of their engagement repeated again. She wanted more clearly to understand what Lucy really felt for Edward, whether there were any sincerity in her declaration of tender regard for him.